Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Science Fiction and Fantasy Marketing Podcast, the show where we help you establish your author brand, increase the size of your audience, and sell more books. I'm Lindsay Baroker, and I'm here with Jeffrey Poole and Joe Lalo. And this week, it's just going to be the three of us. We're going to kind of do a round-robin interview kind of thing where we each talk about something we know about, or the others are going to ask questions about something we know about. You'll see. We're going to talk about pre-orders. Joe has some recent experience doing that on Amazon and the other stores. Jeff's going to talk about Smashwords formatting for those of you who are maybe new to Smashwords and struggling with the meat grinder. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience with Kindle Unlimited with the pen name. I've been in there about 3.5 months now, so have some thoughts. Can talk about how it can help launch a book or multiple books. But before we get started, hey, what are you guys up to? What's going on in the publishing world?
Well, with regards to me, I'm getting ready to release my, sixth. Getting ready to release my sixth book there, on which I was really hoping to release it by the end of last year. Completely finished it by, I would say, first part of December. Thought I'd make it, and realized I forgot to contact the cover artist to organize the thing, because usually I contact right around halfway through, and cover artist was preoccupied with something that she'd be done with in 9 months, so I have to work around her schedule. So my book is being delayed. On the plus side, though, is I've got number 7 halfway written, essentially, because while I'm not being idle, while that one is being worked on for the cover, I'm working on increasing my productivity. So it used to be I would get 1 chapter done a week. I'm actually up to 2 now, so it's more than doubled. So here's hoping.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm having kind of not a similar problem, but no 9 months deal. But the cover artist I contacted back in, I think, November to do my next series. He's a real busy guy. He does a lot for traditional publishing, and it's more complicated cover than usual because there's a photo shoot and an illustration. We were hoping to have it done in January, and it's February now, and I know he's talking to me. He's updating. It's no problem, but that's one of the problems when you write pretty quickly is, especially if you want something custom done for the cover art. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't usually know the title until after I finish the novel and pondered things. So in the future, I'll definitely try to be ordering things a little more quickly or more ahead of time, I guess.
Interestingly enough, usually I have my title already figured out. I don't have the chapter titles figured out just yet for each individual chapter, but it's one of those things where I can't actually focus on working on the book until I know for certain what the darn thing's going to be called. So that's just me, one of my quirks.
Yeah, chapters are a late decision for me too. Right now, my problem is I've been stumbling a little bit with productivity because I'm juggling like 4 projects or so. And every single time I get rolling on one, it seems like another one seems a little bit more important at that moment, and I move over to that one. And I've been having some cover delays too, not because of poor planning or anything. It's just like Lindsay, my guy is very busy. He can work when he can work, and I'm writing faster than he can work. So I'm going to be experimenting with a new cover artist. He's an ascended fan artist. He did really great work in the past, so let's see how his stuff looks on the cover. And fingers crossed. That's early stages for that.
Awesome. Yeah, I've definitely got more than one cover artist going now. It seems like it's not too bad for the Photoshop stuff. The guys can usually do that pretty quickly, but if you're doing custom artwork, that can take them a while. So I guess other news I will share, just kind of because it might be useful for somebody. I actually had like a really good January. In part because of a new release, both for the pen name and the regular name. Confusing myself now. in December, but then in January I had a BookBub ad, which I try to get those as often as I can, which isn't as often as I would like. But it was I bundled up the first 3 books in my Dragon Blood series, which is kind of a newer steampunk series. And I've done book bundles of my own stuff before, but in the past, I've done and dropped them to 99 cents for BookBub, and it sold pretty well. Like I think I sold maybe 1,500 copies of the first 3 books in the Emperor's Edge series last May when I did it. But I didn't do like a special new cover. I didn't really change the blurb that much. I just assumed anybody who was interested in the bundle would have already read the first book, and I could just summarize the 3 books that were in the bundle. I actually did it differently for this one because actually the reason was I have different characters in book 1 and book 2, so I didn't really know how to write the blurb. So I ended up making this really generalized, there's a dragon, descendants of dragons, blah, blah, blah. They got to try to fight for a place in the world, and the kind of thing I would never read because it sounds too general. But I think between that and the fact that dragon was in the title, which we talked about before, is like people love dragons in their fantasy. It did really well on BookBub. It got like 3,000 sales on Amazon just in that first 24 hours. And what really shocked me is it got over 1,000 sales on Barnes & Noble in that first 24 hours too, which that never happens. I do get sales on Barnes & Noble from BookBub, but not that many. I like double-checked it because I thought that was not correct. I couldn't believe that. And in both places, it actually ended up sticking at the top of the charts for a while, which, not like the whole, I think it was like in the top 200, 300 in the Amazon store, even a couple days later after it started to fall from the BookBub ad. And that never happens to me. I told you I've done like 8 BookBub ads, and, I've never really had anything stick and stay up there. Usually it's just kind of a fall off. And I think it was in part that the blurb was more for general audience than usually I write pretty specific blurbs about what happens in the book. Imagine, and the characters, but I took this opportunity to just change it up a little bit, and I did have a cover artist do a new cover, and so it was really exciting because that never happens to me. I've heard of it happening to other people, but it's still like right now I left it at 99 cents because I went on vacation and I didn't even remember to set it back, but it's still selling quite well. I think it's around 500. I'm probably going to bump it back up pretty soon, but I've got it. I think it ended up over 10,000 sales. So even at 99 cents, that's not insignificant money, and a lot of people are checking out the 4th book in the series. So I guess, like I always say, if you do a bundle, first off, do a bundle. If you've got more than 3 books out, throw them in a box, and I think it helps getting a BookBub ad because you're able to discount it so much. Like with a bundle, I think my usual price I put was $7 or something like that, and so I'm dropping it to 99 cents is a really good deal for their readers. And BookBub, I think they really like to pick books that are a large discount, so it looks like a better deal for their readers. So they snap that up pretty quickly, even though usually I get, try again next month and that sort of thing.
How many reviews did you have on it? Like, how recently is this out?
I had 7 reviews, but and this is true with always with the bundles. They'll look at the other books that are in the bundle. I had like 300 combined on the other 3 books. So
I'm getting turned down left and right lately on stuff with like 200 reviews.
Well, I know. Trust me, my pen name cannot get any loving. I keep trying to get the first one in the series picked up, and I don't think they really want science fiction romance. I think it's too nichey, but I keep trying. You never know, So anyway, I just wanted to tell people, if you've got a series, bundle up the first 3 and stick it out there, and try BookBub and other places too, and you never know. It could really, because it is such a good deal, both to BookBub and to readers. A lot of people might pick it up, and you never know what could happen. Even if you write like my stuff's steampunk, which is always, people seem to think that's more popular than it is, but as I've talked about on here before, I think there's more people listening to the music and dressing in the clothes than actually reading the books. And another thing is when I did the bundle, I kind of made it more of an epic fantasy slant rather than really emphasizing the tech aspect, the fact that the guys are flying around in these World War I airplanes. But anyway, that's enough blathering for me on that. I just thought it'd be a good tip for people that haven't tried that yet.
Very cool.
But if you guys don't have any more news to discuss, I thought we might bring up the fact that the SFWA, you know how sad this is? I don't even know. Science fiction, I don't know what the W stands for.
Writers. I think it's
Writers Association.
Writers Association, yeah.
There you go. Obviously, I'm not in it. But you guys might be interested that they're changing their rules for the first time to accept small press and indie authors. You're going to have, I wrote this down, basically you have to have a sale of a novel, or one novel that sells at least $3,000, I believe it's in a year, or a total of 10,000 words of short fiction paid at 6 cents a word. That's for active membership. Or a single short story of at least 1,000 words paid at 6 cents a word for associate membership. So I don't know, you guys, is this anything? This is kind of like when I was first started writing and wrote some short stories, and remember checking them out because it was like some elite thing that you wanted to try to get into, right? And I never could make pro market sales. I never could even finish a magazine I got from a pro market. No offense to anybody that has submitted to those or sold those, but it just, I'm very swords and sorcery, just kind of fun stuff. You know, I don't like literary. I mean, I don't not like literary fiction, but I don't really read it, and it's not what I write. So, and that's what I always felt most of the pro markets were. Science fiction and fantasy were very, you know, not guys running around with swords and fighting dragons kind of thing.
High concept stuff.
There you go, high concept. That's the term.
Well, my question would be what would be the benefit of being a member of this? How does it help you?
That's kind of my question. I'll be curious for you guys if any indie authors are going to join. I think they might have some health insurance or something you can get, and you can vote on like Nebula awards.
You vote on Nebula awards. I believe that you can get a lot of advice. I looked into this a while ago. Like, you can, I believe you can like submit, like, oh, I got this contract from an agent. What do you think? Like, is this worth pursuing? And like, there's sort of a knowledge base that you can tap into. And I think there's classes and things as well. And again, but the Nebula thing is the one that intrigued me the most. You can vote on it, and presumably being an SFWA member is going to, at the very least, make you look more appealing to people who are voting on the Nebula Awards.
I'm pretty sure I'm not going to get a Nebula Award no matter what organization I join.
No, nor will I.
I usually haven't read any of the books that get nominated, so I don't know.
I was just wondering if, like, you get to put like a little logo or something on your website or your blog that says, "Look what I'm a member of," and most people will say, "What is that?" No idea what it is, but you never know. I mean, I wouldn't mind consider it if there's some benefit for you. Because otherwise, why bother? That'd be my question.
I have no doubt that there is some value to being in it, and I'm sure if we looked into it, we'd find a few things that are useful. But I get the feeling that it would be about as useful to me as the degree that was on my wall that I replaced with an animator's print, because that's prettier to look at and does about as much good.
Well, if we get any listeners that actually are members and or would like to say kind of what some of the benefits are, I would be definitely love to hear that. You could come leave a comment on the site. marketingsff.com. I would be interested if, I've actually thought about joining RWA, the Romance Writers Association, because they put on some really interesting conferences every year that are geared towards publishing and marketing and that kind of thing. And another one is called Novelists Inc., NINC.com or whatever. And it's the same thing. They do some good conferences. So those I would probably consider joining first, just because I don't know that much about it. The SFWA has always seemed very little snooty, not accepting. They're like the last ones that have decided they're going to let indie authors in. And, I kind of wonder how heartfelt it is. But I would say at least $3,000 a novel is not out of...
It's not out of reach.
It's not insignificant, but it's actually less than... I think the NINC people is $5,000 a novel. And if you think about it, most deals, even for a kind of a base level deal with a publisher, you'd get probably a $5,000 advance. So they could have made it harder.
Yeah.
But I guess that's all we have to say on that. Just news for you guys to check out if it's anything you would be interested in. I think it sounds like in March it's going to be available. There's going to be more details and maybe a form online that you can sign up for and send them some money. These things usually involve, I don't know how much theirs is, but...
Yeah, there'll be dues and fees and whatnot, I'm sure.
Of course. And that's why they're letting in the indie authors. They need more money.
I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, so I think we're going to have Joe talk first on his experience with pre-orders. And Jeff and I both wrote up a few questions to ask him. Are you ready, Joe?
I am ready.
All right, I'm first here because I haven't talked enough already this episode. So go ahead and make your answers long, then people can get a break from me. So, because I haven't done this yet, I haven't done pre-order, so I am curious about kind of how things have been going for you. So my first question is just, what all is involved in putting a book up for pre-order, both on Amazon and on Smashwords and Kobo. I think you can do it, and pretty much all the source through Smashwords. So, like, what all do you need, and like, what state does your manuscript have to be in?
You need surprisingly little. For Amazon, well, in both cases, your manuscript does not have to be in any state whatsoever. Ideally, you'd want to be mostly done, because on Amazon you can't pre-order more than 3 months ahead. So if it takes you more than 3 months to write a novel, then you'd better be mostly done before you put it up for pre-order. But you can put up a manuscript with 6 words in it, and it'll be fine, as long as you're aware, and they'll give you a heads up beforehand. But you have about 10 days before your release date. Your thing has to be locked in. Otherwise, whatever you gave them is going to be the final manuscript, or Amazon will slap you on the wrist. Amazon's policy is if you don't at least flip the "This is my final manuscript" button. There's an indicator on their site. This is my final manuscript. This is a draft. And if you don't flip that to "This is final" within their upload deadline, then you will not be doing another pre-order for a year. That's your punishment if you don't meet your deadline. But other than that, I believe Amazon requires a cover, and you need a blurb, and you need some sort of file, which again could be a 6-word Word document. Smashwords doesn't even require that. Smashwords they sort of have to be, it's not an official method, but you can get information from them on this. They will do an assetless pre-order. And there's a special method. You got to talk to Mark Coker, because it's sort of a risk for them. But you can get a procedure to put up a book. You don't even need a cover. And my current pre-order, which is coming out on March 26th, it did not have a cover until about 2 weeks ago. It shows up different ways, but you need a blurb, you need a title, and that's really all you need. In fact, when I spoke to Mark Coker at Book Expo America, he asked me if I had a pre-order up at the time. I did. And he asked me if I had another book that I was planning to write, and I said yes. And he goes, if you have a title, put that up for pre-order too. Because Smashwords will let you have a very, very long pre-order period. And so, yeah, you don't need much at all to get stuff on pre-order, as long as you are reliable enough to be able to hit your deadline.
Makes sense.
Oh, I should also say, not so much Kobo or Barnes & Noble, but Apple does allow you to have an excerpt up. So let's say that you had let's say you're pre-ordering for 6 months, and you finish your book 3 months in. Or you don't finish your book, but you have your first 2 chapters done. You can wrap those up as sort of their own standalone thing and submit that to Smashwords, and they'll move it along to Apple, and Apple will put the excerpt up as sort of your sample download for if people want to see what your book is about. And Apple very much likes people who have excerpts available, and sometimes they will do a special promotion for people for pre-orders with excerpts, like special peek for upcoming books. So excerpts are useful, but again, not necessary.
Now, is that a specific field inside Smashwords somewhere for that excerpts? Because I don't recall seeing that.
No, you have to deal with them via email for this. It's sort of an aspect of the assetless pre-order.
Okay.
So you have to be special.
You have to be special. That's what I found out.
You got to hang out with Mark at the conventions.
Yeah. I also found out you have to really read. I got yelled at because I had a nearly finished manuscript, and I replaced my assetless manuscript with the nearly finished one. Nearly in that it had not been given its final edit. And he was like, don't put it up until it's got its final edit. Like, Amazon will take a draft and not care. But he wants to make sure that when you finally upload your manuscript, the full manuscript, unless it's specifically the excerpt, he wants it to be the polished, finished book, because of the way sometimes, like Kobo in particular, will really drag its feet on uploading an update. So if you put your error-filled rough draft up as your temporary one, and then you put up your finished one, and it shows up everywhere else polished and perfect. The error-filled one might still be on Kobo when your pre-order goes live, which could really be a problem if you had a tremendous number of pre-orders on Kobo, because now everyone who wanted to read your book got the version that's full of errors.
Spoken from experience?
No, it didn't happen, but it could have happened.
I think I'd have to put something in the front that was like, this is the alpha version. If you got this, email it to me and I'll send you a new one. I'd also feel the pressure of having to, even though I write quickly, just knowing I had this date looming ahead. I think I would feel I would have to put a pretty much complete manuscript up there whenever I decided to do a pre-order.
That has been my policy, but this one in particular I put up in a hurry because I was talking to Apple about something else. I had been selected. My first steampunk novel was selected by Apple for promotion, and when they were talking to me about that promotion, they asked if there was going to be a sequel. I mentioned that there was, and we started talking about what might be able to be done with that if it was on pre-order. So I was like, I better hurry up and get this on pre-order. So I rolled the dice. It's at the editor now. It should be back with 3 weeks to spare, but anything could happen.
Wow, you know all sorts of people. Mark and some Apple guy.
Apple contacts, Kobo contacts,
I'm
Barnes
lucky.
and Noble contacts. You mean you're special? Yes, we get it.
I'm special.
All right, well, so my next question is, why would someone want to go through the hassle of doing this? What has been your experience of what's the benefit?
There's a couple of things. There's not a hugely pronounced benefit, particularly on Amazon, but there's a couple of things that are nice. One thing I like is that it's the only way I've found where you can absolutely be certain that your books release at exactly the same time on all of the storefronts. Like, if you are set up for pre-order on Smashwords, then everything will show up. Every place that it's pre-ordered will get it that day. And instead of rolling out slowly to the other storefronts, likewise, it'll be the only way I know of where you can be darn sure that at whatever midnight, whenever the clocks roll over for pre-orders, it shows up on Amazon as well, because I've had a tremendous amount of, almost all of my books have a different release date on Amazon than they do on other sites, because I never know how long it's going to take Amazon to get it to hit the storefront, so I always sort of jump the gun, so it's got like an 8-hour earlier release on Amazon. So this is a way that you can get it to show up at the same time. You can this is useful in that when you're promoting prior to a book's release, you can promote prior to a book's release because people can click a button right then. But while you're promoting prior to a book's release, you can give the actual live link that will work later. So you're like, oh, I got a book coming out in 2 months. So you can see it here. And that same link that you've been pushing for however long your pre-order is going to work once the pre-order goes live. So there's that too. You can sort of get started early. The main one for places that are not Amazon, the main usefulness is, particularly on Apple, they apply all of your pre-order sales as day one sales. So if you got 350 pre-orders over the course of a 6-month run-up, which is not a hugely successful pre-order, but it's substantial. Those all show up. You now got 350 sales in one day on Apple, which is enough to spike you to the top of the genre lists, to be sure. And if you got 10,000 pre-orders over the course of a long run-up, which is not impossible, it's happened to people, then you could hit number one overall in fiction or something. Which is, again, it might be sticky, and then you could have thousands upon thousands of sales per day for a while. So it's a way to spike yourself in the rankings. That doesn't happen on Amazon. I had over 300 on Amazon. I got up into the low 10,000s with my last pre-order release. So I would have been higher than that, 350 sales in one day, or really in 1 hour, technically. But so Amazon, it only helps that you can get started earlier. But for the other ones, it helps because it also gives you a day one spike on your ranking.
I would say that definitely makes it worthwhile.
Yeah, it sounds like it might be a good idea to put it up early on all the other stores and then just maybe put it up like 2 days early or something on Amazon if you can do
That's
that.
true.
Or just hold it.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's true in that, like, those 350 sales, I'm not going to say all 350 of those people would have bought my book on day one if it hadn't been pre-ordered. Probably it would have been somewhere on the order of 10% or 20 or 30% of that. But it still would have been a larger day one punch than I actually got on Amazon. So holding off on, like, the shorter pre-order on Amazon is probably better, or virtually no pre-order. But I will say that another thing, I haven't done this, but a lot of people say this is another usefulness of pre-orders, is you can test blurbs and covers. So, like, if you find you're not getting a big return on your blurb, you can change it a few times over the course of the pre-order period, so that when the day one comes along, people can buy it. You've got a really honed one that the audience seems to like. I have never done that, but a lot of people say that it's worth doing.
Okay, that's interesting. I definitely like the idea too, just of having Apple sale, or the listing on the Apple Store actually being on the same day as you're releasing everywhere else. But because I do go through Smashwords to get into Apple still, it's usually it's like, here's the links to everything else, guys. Sorry, Apple people, it'll be up in a week or two, maybe.
Yeah, really my favorite thing about it is I can synchronize release on as many places as possible.
All right, I'm going to think about this in the future, but as I've said, I have a problem with getting cover art and titles and everything done that early, so I'll have to start trying to be more organized, or writing more slowly. I don't know.
Yeah, I wish everybody could have that problem, writing it too fast. Oh my goodness. Oh, woe is you.
It's a difficult life. Your editors and my beta readers are like, really? You're sending something else so soon? Thanks. But I think those are my questions, so I'm going to pass you over to Jeff now.
All right, let's see here. My first question, I think you addressed a good chunk of this, but essentially is, what happens if you set one of your titles for a pre-order, you jump through all the hoops necessary, and then something happens which forces you to change the release date? What kind of penalties, if any, will you face? You mentioned something about if by chance you break the deadline or miss the deadline or whatnot, then what, you said you can't do another pre-order for at least a year?
For Amazon, if you don't have your final manuscript in place by their deadline, which is 10 days before release, then you aren't allowed to pre-order again on Amazon for a year. That's your punishment for not hitting their deadline. For Smashwords, you can change your pre-order date. It's probably not, it's probably frowned upon, and you need to do it earlier rather than later. Like, you don't want to change your pre-order date 3 days before release. But if you know a month ahead that you're not going to hit your deadline, if it might actually be a mechanism in place in the actual pre-order system to change your date right there without even asking for special permission. So you got some flexibility on Smashwords. On Amazon, that they slap you on the wrist.
So you've got with, at least with Smashwords, you've got the more control. But Amazon, if you crack that 10-day mark, then you better enjoy your pre-order, because you're not getting another one for at least a year.
Yep. Which for some people isn't a problem, because some people aren't going to release more than one book a year.
Yeah, that's true. But like some of us who write too fast, that could be problematic. So, all right, let's see. Is there a limit to how many pre-orders one author can create with Kindle? I mean, if by chance, you do screw up, obviously you only get the one per year. But I mean, if you happen to write as fast as, say, someone that likes to write steampunk, for instance, I mean, can can that person have
this hypothetical person?
Yeah, this hypothetical person, can it have more than one pre-order going at the same time? Do you know?
To my knowledge, there's no, like, as far as I know, every pre-order is treated as its own thing. So, like, it's as many books as you want to release is how many pre-orders you can do. It's just sort of a function of your release type. So if you happen to have one book that's coming out next week, another book that's coming out in 6 months, another that's coming out in a year, you can pre-order 3 books simultaneously. I'm almost certain. I haven't tried it, but I've come close. I've started a pre-order just a few days after I released a book. So I don't think there's any limitations on that.
Nice. The benefits of okay, we already covered my last question. Benefits of doing a pre-order, you already answered that. So yeah, that was pretty much my questions.
All right, I'll say a few other things regarding pre-orders. There's a few troubles that you have. Promoting pre-orders is very difficult. Like, aside from your mailing list and just ads and things like that, you can't get a BookBub for a pre-order, because pre-orders, unless you are very, very special, which I am not, and you have an Amazon rep, then you can't get reviews on a pre-order. So most places that have, like, quality standards won't accept a pre-order for promotion. So doing the really intense, successful promotion methods for pre-orders is almost impossible. And also, there's a lot of places that won't even do ads for pre-orders. This week, in fact, I was doing an ad on a website called StoryFinds. They solicited me because I've done ads with them in the past, and they knew that I had a steampunk novel, and it was a steampunk theme week. So, like, would you like to put up your latest release? And they looked up what my latest release was. And I was like, well, that's a pre-order. Do you do pre-orders? And she was like, oh, I have to talk to the manager. Like, she's like, oh, I'm not sure yet. Actually, we don't usually do that. It turns out they do, and it is being promoted on there. But it is by no means a foregone conclusion that your standard promotion methods will work for pre-orders.
Good to know.
Yeah, it's too bad you can't get reviews. The publishers all can get reviews.
Yeah.
Maybe that will be coming.
Yeah, that's what always blew me away when, like, for instance, like some of the really well-known traditional publishers that I like, I find out they're getting ready to release a book. It won't come out for 2 months, so I pre-order it. Yet I start seeing reviews pop up for it. It says, okay, like for instance, 3 stars. I wish it wasn't so far out. I'd give it a higher review. I'm like, really? You're supposed to read the book and rate it. You're not supposed to go like, okay, well, it's too far away, or the price is $12.99. They got a 1 star because it's $12.99. That's just idiotic. It drives me nuts when I see stuff like that.
I got my all-time favorite review recently. Is along those lines. It said the title of the review was 3 stars, and indeed it was a 3-star review. And the entire text of the review was, "I have not read this book yet." So not only hadn't they read it yet, they misspelled the word "read." So I was like, "This is it. This is the future of reviews right here."
Yeah, I got a 4-star review, I think, for my second book. They said, "Yeah, I haven't read it yet. Cover looks good. I'll get around to it eventually." I'm like,
I'll take a 4-star on sight unseen.
All right. Yeah, it could have been worse, but oh well.
All right, so maybe these advanced reviews are not that great of a thing anyway. So
could be.
All right. Well, shall we switch over to Jeff for questions on Smashwords formatting?
Bring it on.
All right. Well, those of you listening will have to let us know if you actually use Smashwords or if you use Draft to Digital to get into. I know I do Kobo Direct. I don't do Apple Direct yet, but to get into like Oyster and Scribed and some of the smaller sites and the libraries and such, you still need a distributor for some of them. But I've heard like on Kboards, a lot of people have gone over to Draft to Digital. I personally haven't had trouble with Smashwords, especially this last year or so. They've been really quick with getting updates to Apple and the other sites. So I haven't been motivated to try the other place. But yeah, so anybody out there, if you want to comment and just let us know. I'm kind of curious how many people are using Smashwords still or plan to keep doing it.
I am.
I think all 3 of us are, right? Yeah. But for those who are going to use it, so my first question to you, Jeff, is do you have any tips for making a trip through the meat grinder as smooth as possible?
The first and most important tip would be try to remove as much formatting as possible. If you make it complex, we're not talking italics, we're not talking underline. The meat grinder can figure that out in no time flat. For those of you, like I use personally Microsoft Word, I forget what version, 2007, 2010, one of those two. And you notice whenever you use one of these word processing programs, you have those styles, and I'm pointing to my screen like you can see me. Pointing to the styles button that are on the top there, like heading 1, heading 2, so forth. That's the sort of stuff that can really screw things up, and to the point where if you're ever reading an ebook and all of a sudden everything's looking good, all of a sudden if there's a huge break in the paragraphs, almost looks like usually that's like you transition to a new thought or a new point of view when it's just an abnormal break between the two. Well, when whoever is typing it, apparently I don't know if they're bumping those styles up there or trying to experiment or whatnot, but keep the formatting down to an absolute minimum. And also I learned from experience is Smashwords Meat Grinder does not like any reference to any rivals. So, like, for instance, in the About the Author section I usually put in the back of my books, you cannot say, for instance, I learned this the hard way, that, if all my books are available at all the online retailers, Amazon, the Kobo, Barnes & Noble, and it promptly got rejected, and I got the little notification from the actual Smashwords employee that said, essentially, WTF, you cannot mention somebody else, just take that out of there. But so stuff like that to be on the lookout for.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that from other people too, and I think I may have tried it early on. I didn't mention Amazon, but I mentioned I wanted to put the links to Apple and Kobo and Smashwords because you're going to get the same EPUB from them to go to all those stores, and you want to make it so people can buy the next book in the series. So
Right.
to me, it made sense.
Oh, well, one other thing I will mention is, like for instance, a lot of the e-reader devices, whether you're using a Kindle, whether you're using a Nook from Barnes and Noble or whatnot, they have the option to switch between like what they call daytime setting and nighttime setting. And sometimes, I learned this the hard way too. The first book I ever released, I had it where, in the daytime setting, you read that thing just fine. Everything vanished as soon as you switched to the nighttime setting. And it wasn't until I investigated the text and I found out why. Me trying to be the perfectionist, I told it I want all my text black. I don't want yellow. I don't want highlighted blue. Everything black. That's how the meat grinder spit it out. Everything black. Looked great. You reverse the colors for a nighttime reading and the screen goes black. Text does not switch automatically to the reverse. All of a sudden, your text disappears and you can't read it. The key there is the font color has got to be automatic. So make sure that'll let it, when you reverse colors, it automatically reverses the colors as well. That was about 2 weeks of serious cussing, swearing, and trial and error to figure out what happened to that one. So trust me, automatic text color.
Sounds like a good idea. Yeah, I had one like that where I think the italics or something had maybe that black. It told it to be black font because I usually on my iPad I read in the Kindle app, and I had it on like the sepia background, kind of a tan background, and it makes the text dark brown. Except all the italics throughout the book were black, so it's a little weird.
That would be why.
All right. Well, okay. So my next question. Well, first, for people who are having trouble, can you talk about like what their nuclear method is to just kind of zap all the formatting?
The easiest way, if you suspect your book is just riddled with all kinds of formatting, because I've got a couple author friends that I just absolutely hate Smashwords meat grinder just because it always comes back with an error. There is one surefire way you can strip all formatting off of a book, and that is, and bear in mind, this will take out the centering, the indentation, and everything. But if you copy your whole book right in a notepad, there is no formatting. So it strips it completely off. Once it's in Notepad, turn around and copy it back. And that way you can put just the basic formatting like center, like the chapter titles, indent your paragraphs or whatnot, or else you can even do what I do with my own book when I'm writing there is you can actually highlight, for instance, the actual books itself and go into the paragraph option, and this is in Microsoft Word, paragraph option and say first line, indent, and I usually do 0.2 inches. And everything jumps over about 4 or 5 characters, so it looks like an automatic paragraph jump. Works great in the Kindle. It works great in Smashwords. That's what I would recommend. But yeah, if you've got a whole lot of formatting and you suspect that you're getting error after error with the Smashwords, do that. Copy and paste in the Notepad. Copy and paste back, and I guarantee you that's going to strip away all formatting. If you've got like little quotes or any quotations, if you've got italics, if you've got anything underlined, FYI, this is going to take it off of there. But it also will remove all the headings, the heading 1, 2, 3, 4, quotations, anything that you might have done to it, this will remove it. So if you want to start fresh from scratch, that would be the way to do it.
I'm glad I've never had to do that because that would kill me because I have a lot of italics.
I only did it once, and I learned real quickly. It's like, oh my god, all the different. There's a lot of times I have different dragons speaking and whatnot. So, for instance, I have one dragon speaking in all upper caps bold. I have another dragon speaking in bold, but just normal case there. And as soon as I did that, I'm looking at them like, why don't I see anybody? Oh, I realized what I did, and by that time I had already saved it. There was no going back, so there was some time wasted switching everything back. But at least I got through the meat grinder there because I kept on spitting back some sort of funky thing there. But table of contents, which I'm sure we'll be hitting here next, that was a lot of that's where the handy dandy choice of expletives come out. But I have since learned it, so I'll be more happy to tell you all about it.
All right, and less new authors getting scared here. I should say that I had trouble the first time I did it because my file had originally started in like Lotus or something like that. This is a book I started way back in the day. So I did have trouble getting the italics and everything to work on the first time, but most normal novels now. I don't have any trouble, and I'm not really a Word person until the very end. I write in Scrivener, and then I just export as a doc file to send it to my editor. So I actually think that maybe that helps not have weird stuff in there, or I've just learned I'm not tempted to really do anything weird, you know. But yeah, talk about the headers, and if you want to use the header style in order to have the table of contents be automatic, or if you need to.
Well, with the table of contents, it's not the headers or anything like that's another thing too. Headers and footers, you want to make sure those are all turned off for the meat grinder. You got to make sure the page numbers, those are all turned off. Essentially, any special formatting, like myself, I got into a habit of writing everything, resize my pages down to the 6:9 normal trade back. That's easier for the reference to me. Some people like that, some people don't, but that's just me. But in my case, though, I deliberately go back to the default setting of 8.5 by 11. I don't think the margins really matter, but I just put it back to the default margins, and that's how I will convert it over to the Smashwords ready for the meat grinder. But the table of contents, I learned is if you want to put the table of contents in there, you can, if you want to try and trust the meat grinder to put the automatic heading or the table of contents in there are certain things you can do. Trust me, this way would be easier. If you're familiar with putting in a bookmark, meaning if you, let's say for instance, you want to create your table of contents, so you create literally the words table of contents, you need to, and just start putting in there, for instance, chapter 1, chapter 2, however many chapters you have there. Then you can actually, at the beginning of where it says table of contents, you need to actually create, or in Word, insert bookmark, and I believe you can look under the Smashwords styling guide. Mark Coker spells it all out. I believe the bookmark is called TOC. That's the code for meat grinder to say, oh, here's the table of contents. So when you hit the table of contents button on all the e-reader devices, it jumps you straight there. But essentially what you're doing is every single time you go to a chapter, or however you want to break it up, go to chapter 1, put the cursor right at where it says chapter 1, insert bookmark, and you can call it whatever you want, but I usually call it chapter 1. And that way, when you go back to the text where you actually typed out table of contents, highlight all of chapter 1, and literally you can go, and instead of linking it like you would like a hyperlink to like a website or whatnot, you have the option when you're actually going to create and link it to a bookmark. It'll show you all the bookmarks you've actually created, and that way you can actually make it jump within the document. And Meat Grinder recognizes that and makes it the table of contents. It sounds daunting, but it's really not that bad.
All right. I've not had to do that. I think they automatically recognize if you use chapter or part. And I'm not sure if that's automatic or if you have to use the header or heading one in Word.
If you do it automatically, I believe that again, it's in that styling guide that Mark Coker wrote. I believe it's one of the headings you specify, as long as you highlight and make sure each chapter title is consistent with if it's heading 1 or heading 2, then you can it will automatically pick it up and do it for you. But I have never had that much good luck for it with that sort of thing. I've just learned to do it with just linking it within the document itself. But then again, I'm also a computer tech, so I can pretty much figure that one out. But it's what's easiest for me.
Okay, and I think it's improved and gotten better over the years. I remember having more problems. What you do need to do, though, and I'll ask you about this more, is if you're doing like an omnibus or something where you have like 3 books in one ebook, that's when you definitely need to make your own table of contents, right? Because you don't want to putting chapters. You want to putting the books in the table of contents.
I learned when we did that Fantasy 101, with I got you in there and a couple other authors there. I tried to be like, okay, I'll just put in, table of contents everywhere. I'll just have it where, the table of contents, book 1, book 2, book 3, all the different books that we have there. And then as you got to each book has its own separate table of contents. Well, that created one heck of a problem with the meat grinder. And I found out it wants one and only one table of content. There's no linking to anything else in there. So something like that, the best thing to do, especially in like an omnibus, is literally just your table of contents. Okay, here's book 1, whatever the book title is. Book 2, that way it could jump to the individual books. But once you're at the individual books, there is no table of contents for each one of them because it just gets too problematic with that. Unless you go, for instance, book 1, chapter, or maybe part 1, book 2, chapter, whatever you want to do there. Everything has got to be listed right then and there. You can't actually get to the document when you get to that book and say, okay, here's book 1, and there's no table of contents there. There's no jumping when you actually get there. All the jumping would be done at the beginning of the actual omnibus itself.
Right, and I always think with fiction, how much point is there to actually put the chapters up at the front? Nobody's going to like jump to chapter 7 and start
Right.
there.
Exactly.
But that's all my questions on that for you. So I'll pass you over to Joe there and see if he has any more.
Alrighty.
All right. Indeed, I do. So you talked a lot about the Smashwords style guide, which is sort of my formatting Bible for this sort of thing. Do you recommend just basically familiarizing yourself with it, and then just following the style guide?
Absolutely. That is essentially that Mark Coker going through there and saying, okay, I wrote the meat grinder. Here's what it's going to take to pass through the meat grinder unmolested, essentially, and there's what to do, what not to do, sort of thing. So yeah, you said it right. Consider it a Bible and follow it religiously.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely. It has taught me a lot. My first stuff was not so good, and then I followed every single step, and I worked like a checklist. So I have to agree with you on that one. All right. Let's say you're formatting your book. What's your best bang for your buck when it comes to cleaning up your manuscript? Like, if you don't trust yourself to be able to do every single step in the style guide, what do you think is the most important thing?
The most important thing is, if anything, what you can always do. Most word processing programs will do this. If you think that, like I said, if you've got like a whole lot of different styles of formatting in there and you're kind of worried about what Meat Grinder will do, or else you've tried submitting it to Meat Grinder says, we're not touching this, then it's a matter of, yeah, you want to get the thing cleaned up. And what you can do just to see how well it worked, for instance, is you can try and just copy and paste like a couple of your pages, and either you can highlight everything, and you've got the option in most word processors where you can remove all formatting. It's the same sort of thing if you actually can copy and paste it in the notepad, where you can strip everything away, because basic raw data or the basic raw text will go through that meat grinder just fine. It's seeing stuff behind the scenes that it doesn't like, essentially. I've learned, say with the table of contents, I've learned that I didn't know what Word did this until I tried doing that book bundle, with Lindsay and a few others there, is when you're inserting those table of contents in the books things there, if let's just say you create a link to chapter 1 and you want to rename it so you delete it. Well, it puts a little freaking hidden bookmark, and it puts it behind the scenes where you don't see it. And then all of a sudden, when I'm testing out my table of contents, a couple of chapters don't work, where I've got everything linked correctly. And finally, there's a little option when you're looking at the bookmarks. There's a little checkbox that says Show Hidden Bookmarks. I did that, and like 30 different bookmarks showed up. I'm like, that would explain it. But yeah, just essentially, in order to remove all the formatting, if you just don't trust yourself, the easiest thing to do is to do that. Either copy and paste it into Notepad and reverse that, or else just highlight everything that in question and then just take the option remove formatting, which will strip everything off, and just start from scratch again. And try to avoid all those fancy things as much as possible.
All right. So that's the best thing you can do is limit formatting. What's this like smallest, seemingly most insignificant thing that you still think is worth doing? Like, would it be, say, for instance, the table of contents, or is there anything like little small thing that seems like you could skip it but you really shouldn't?
I've known a lot of people that it's always the table of contents. Everybody loves the idea of having a table of contents in their book where they're opening it up, whether on their iPhone or whether on their like a tablet or whatnot, and being able to tap on something. Even though most people when they're reading, they're not going to do this, but as the author, it's cool to go, oh, chapter 7. And it takes you right over there. That's the sort of thing that it's totally worth it, but it's the biggest pain in the butt to get the thing in there.
All right. So if your goal is to remove all the fancy formatting, what if you're writing poetry or something like that? Like, have you ever done any fancy formatting because it was called for?
I've used quotations. I've used excerpts within the book itself, which required me to really dig inside the word processing program to figure out how to do it. Like, for instance, I referenced like a fake newspaper article in I think my first book there. So I'm trying to figure out how to shrink everything in, change the spacing a little bit, make the font a little bit smaller there, and actually it was one of those. I think they called it a quotation right inside the actual formatting itself. And luckily, MeatGrinder didn't have any issues with it. But you can still do it. That's without any problems there. One quick thing I just thought of too when you mentioned like what else could you actually do to a book to actually make something stand out. Something I learned a while back. It doesn't really work with Smashwords or any other authors, but with Amazon. You probably heard of Shelfari, Shelfari.com.
Indeed.
If you go to Shelfari.com and you essentially create your own account, Since I think Shelfari, it might actually be an Amazon company. I'm not positive on that. But create your account and find your book there. Identify those books as being yours. When you release something on Amazon, whenever you're on an Amazon or a Kindle device, whether a Kindle a reader or else the Kindle app, and you open up you're looking at like the table of contents, whatnot. There's an option in there now that says Book Extras. That will link you straight over and pull up the data from Shelfari. So make sure you have an account with Shelfari. Make sure your whole library is there, and then you can put all kinds of extra cool little details in there. Like, for instance, like all the different names of the chapters in there. You can put in like character names. You can put in setting. You can put in like ratings. If it's something that's questionable, you can have like a note to the adults or a note to parents. Like, okay, well this is PG-13. It's got a couple of foul words, but no sex, no violence, anything like that. I mean, just stuff that you can do there. So that way, when you're looking at there, it's like, oh, well, what's this do? What's this do? Oh, look at that. It brings up some additional information about the book. How cool is that? Stuff like that. I thought was really, really cool.
It's good to know. It's funny. I have a Kindle. It's right here, in fact, and I don't really use it for reading my stuff. I was aware of Shelfari, but it's been a year since I updated my stuff. I probably have 3 books that aren't on there. I did not realize that it was integrated with the Kindle.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. I released the book. If I make the book, like the Kindle, what is it called? The Kindle Mobi, I think it is, or EPUB, whatever the two they are. And from Smashwords, it will not link the Shelfari. But if you create it specifically with Kindle stuff there, that's when the link is created, and it will link it right over to the Shelfari. It's real interesting the way it does that, because I thought it was like, okay, it's the same damn book, same author, same title, same description, same everything, but yet since it's coming from Smashwords, Amazon will not provide that link to the Shelfari. But if Amazon's the one that does the creating, it creates the link for you. So the rule of thumb there is go to shelfari.com if you're an author, create your account, or else update your account, and make sure all your stuff is available there. And like, for instance, in my case, you pull up my Tales of Lantari section there. It says, okay, here's the first book there. It's Lost City. If you like this book, you should check out number 2 of the series. There's number 3. There's other books by this author. I mean, you can do all kinds of extra stuff there that a lot of readers like to see about, like to learn about doing. So just something to do.
Oh, that's good to know. I'll probably do that right after this podcast. The last question I have is, we talk a lot, there's different. Do you do anything differently when you're formatting for the non-Smashwords outlets like Google Play or Amazon?
Google Play, let's see, it's because Smashwords meat grinder formatting and the Amazon formatting is really freaking close. I mean, the only thing that's a little bit different between the two is I believe Smashwords, to get the table of contents, you got to make sure you put the right, bookmark in there. There's a few things you got to get, like what they call the start bookmark, so it knows, for instance, as soon as you open up the book, it jumps you over to this particular spot and it starts reading there. They put the cover in there, so when you tell it, okay, show me the cover, it instantly brings up the cover. There's a few things like that are different, but for the most part, everything is pretty much the same. I mean, I actually go straight through Amazon, and then I also have Smashwords handle everybody else. I haven't thought about trying to deal with Apple directly because I'm not special. I haven't really done anything with Barnes & Noble directly either, because right now, I mean, eventually I have a feeling I probably will, but right now I'll just let Smashwords deal with the headache. They're doing a pretty good job so far, so I don't see any reason to change it.
All right, that's the end of my questions for you, which means we're going to now start asking questions to Lindsay.
Cool.
And the subject is going to be Kindle Unlimited, marketing and book launch.
Barking, huh?
Barking, yes. Since I'm clearly so good at speaking, I might as well just roll into my questions for Lindsay. All right, so on the subject of Kindle and Kindle Select and Unlimited, how effective has Kindle Select and the perks that you get for being exclusive been in boosting your sales?
All right, I'm back here. Dogs are not barking. I was working on typing up the show notes while Jeff was talking, so try to get back into things here. All right, so just to clear everything up for the listeners, I am not in KDP Select with any of the books under my name, but in October when I launched the pen name, I thought that would be a good time to play around with it. So I now have 4 books in there under the pen name. And as far as basically Kindle Unlimited was the reason I was tempted to finally try the program. But as far as KDP Select specifically, a couple of the perks are that you can do the countdown deals. 5 days per quarter, you can choose to either drop the price on your book to whatever you want the sale price to be, 99 cents or $1.99 or something. And During that time, you will continue to get the 70% royalty, even at 99 cents or whatever you've chosen. And you can also choose to make your book free for 5 days. And the 5 days don't have to be consecutive. I think I've tried these countdown deals now a couple times, and I've done like 3 days once and 2 days another time. And yeah, I think it can definitely be helpful in boosting sales because it makes it really easy for you to plan a promotion. So far, I did one ENT ad, I think, or it was My Romance Reads, something like that for the last one. But I actually found that just lowering the book to 99 cents alone was enough to, usual price is $3.99, was enough to kind of bring it back down into the top 20 for my little subcategory. I did have another release at the same time, so it's sort of basically a tool to help increase your visibility. I'll probably say this again later, but if you are not able to get into any of the top 100s for any categories with your books, you're just, you're a new author, you don't have that many sales, I don't think that KDP Select is really going to do that much for you. So, because I hear a lot of people say, oh, they joined and they got 2 borrows in the quarter or the month or whatever, and it just really wasn't worth not being on the other platforms. And I can totally see that. I basically think that if you're able to use the countdown deals, and if you're in Kindle Unlimited, where you're getting borrows, which currently, as we're talking, count as sales insofar as your sales ranking and making it into categories and such on Amazon. If you're able to get enough of those things rolling, KDP Select can help you keep up there and help your books stay visible for longer than they might have otherwise if it was just based on straight-up sales at $3.99 or whatever.
So yeah, definitely value then. So, okay, I know that the Kindle Unlimited earnings come from a shared pool, and the pool is not always the same. How stable does it seem from week to week, and really, I should say month to month, how much you make, say, per borrow? Is it very volatile? Is it roughly the same?
It's been changing a little bit. I guess I've had 3 end-of-month earnings reports that I've been in it now, and it's been between like around, I think 131 was the lowest. I think it was 140 or 150 in there somewhere. So it seems like every month they pump in extra money. There are actually more authors joining it every month, which is funny because if you just listen to K-Words, you'll think everybody's disillusioned with it and fleeing and just totally leaving the program. And it doesn't seem to be the case. Amazon always has to put more money into the pool every month in order to keep the borrows up, the payment on the borrows. I'm not really doing it so much for that money. It's kind of a nice bonus. It's a really nice bonus. You could get like a couple $1,000 extra at the end of the month that you weren't counting on. Because I don't know about you guys, but now that Amazon has that nice little graph, it tells you, and you can say, how much have I made this month? I kind of obsessively click on that and see if I can afford a vacation, some lattes, get some good dark chocolate,
Yeah, I'm pretty darn addicted to looking at the graphs.
But so, it's been fairly stable. There's a lot of people that say, oh, it's just going to keep getting worse and worse, and I don't know, maybe it will. They're probably trying to find the fine line where people will stay in the program. They'll find it useful. If it gets too low, more people might leave the program. But like I was saying, the real reason I did it was for how much it helps with visibility, especially if you're in a niche that's not too crazy competitive, but where you might otherwise kind of struggle to be in that top 20 or top 40, which can just mean so many more people finding your books that never would have found them otherwise. So that's the reason I'm in it right now. I probably will try, once I have a couple more books out in that series, maybe move some of the earlier ones out to the other platforms and just see if the pen name is able to, gain an audience at all in the other stuff. But for now, I'm finding it useful, so sticking with it for the moment.
Okay, so have you seen any impact on things besides sales for KU, like things like the number of reviews the books get, or the number of newsletter signups you might get from those books?
The pen name's doing pretty good. I let people know, like, hey, if you leave reviews, just let me know and I'll give you review copies. So I'm very open about that. I do think it's easier to come by a borrow than it is to come by a sale, especially if your normal price is $4 or $5 or something. So, and that's something people don't always consider when they're kind of dissing the program. They're like, it's not worth it if you're selling anything over $2.99 because you're only making $1.30 instead of 205 or anything higher, and it's like, well, would you have made that sale otherwise? Maybe not. For people in the program, it's basically free books, so it's as easy for you to make a sale to them as it would be if you just had a perma-free, because they're paying their $10 a month and they get unlimited books. So yeah, so it may be easier to get more reviews just because it's easier to get more borrows and you've got more people looking at it overall. So maybe.
All right. Okay, so you sort of answered this, but you haven't done a tremendous amount of marketing for these books yet. But do you think that you would be doing any marketing specifically targeting Kindle Unlimited, or would it just be general for the books?
I would love to if I knew of a place. I want to say that there is some guy in Kboards that started up a Kindle Unlimited, BookBub kind of thing. I haven't really looked into it. I don't usually pay much attention to that startup promotion sites because they want money and they're not yet able to produce the sales. It's something I'll watch out for. If that ever becomes an option, I would certainly consider dropping a little money to advertise to KU specifically, for sure.
All right. So when you watch, like you say, you keep an eye on the graphs, do you see KU borrows and sales sort of following each other, or do they sort of have independent ups and downs?
In the beginning, it was probably about 1-to-1, and I've kind of heard different things from people. I think it depends a lot on the genre. I think I've said before, this is my pen name is science fiction romance, and even though it's science fiction, I think you get a lot of the same traits of the romance readers who are very voracious readers and seem to be more likely to be in a program like this. So mine's roughly 1-to-1. I'll definitely get more sales than borrows when I first release a new book now, because I do have some readers that like the cast enough to the characters to want to continue on and actually buy copies of the book. I just took a peek the other day when I got back from my trip, and so far in February I have more borrows on most of the books than sales. So I think after I get like my initial fans who go out and pick it up, within the first week of a release, then it's probably just going to be more people randomly driving by or surfing by and deciding that, yeah, this looks okay, I'll try it. So, but it's been about 1-to-1, and right now, like I think two-thirds, 2 sales for 3 borrows so far this month for books that have been out a little longer.
All right. Well, so stands to reason. It certainly doesn't seem like KU is completely annihilating what would have been sales.
Most people. Actually, we had somebody. I think we had Wayne Stimmett on the other show, and he writes sea adventures, kind of. I'm not sure if they're thrillers exactly, but adventures. And he kind of had he also didn't think that it was annihilating sales. He said that, but he did have more sales than borrows, that probably his target audience was less likely to be in Kindle Unlimited. So I'll be kind of curious because, like I said, the romance aspect kind of, not taints it, that changes things a little bit from a straight up sci-fi. I'd be kind of curious because I think epic fantasy people probably read a little slower and in general and are more likely, because we write beastly books for them, are probably a little less likely to be in the program. So I don't know, maybe if any of our readers or listeners are trying out KU and do more of the Chihuahua Killer type books, let us know how they're doing with KU and if they find it useful.
That'll be useful to know. Yeah, that was my last question, so I guess we'll toss to Jeff now for his questions.
Alrighty, let's see here. Would you recommend first-time authors enrolling in KU, or would you recommend building a fan base first and then giving a try, or maybe getting a few more books under your belt? What would you recommend?
I actually think for first-time authors, that's the best time to try it, because you don't have fans yet that are going to be disappointed that you're not putting books out on Kobo and Apple and those sites. If you're going to try it, it's totally a personal thing. And like I said, the pen name was a throwaway for me, so I didn't have anything writing on whether it did well or not. But I think it's easier to kind of get started because of what I was talking about, the fact that you can do the countdown deals, the fact that KU can help with visibility. So it's easier to grow a fan base if you're getting more people checking out your books to start with. Once you get out there a little more and you've got more readers, and I've actually had a couple people email my pen names account asking for EPUB files, when is this going to be somewhere else? Because I did actually put the first book in the series out everywhere, so I could have it perma-free on Amazon. which was one of the things that really helped it get off to a good start. And so far, I'm like, hey, here's the EPUBs. They're not going to be available for a few months, but I don't want anybody to be bitter about it. But it's actually something I think I would say start out in KU if you're at all considering it, or start out in KDP Select. And then later, if you want to go to the other platforms, that might be the time to do it. One of the reasons I haven't considered it with my regular name is I don't want to pull stuff from other sites and just kind of lose the momentum you've got going on the other sites, and I don't want to have somebody that's read 3 books in a series and suddenly not be able to get the 4th book on Apple. So yeah, I would say new author is probably the ideal person to give it a try. Or if you have several books out but you're not really selling that well on the other sites, you can try it. I do think you do need to have a little bit of a marketing strategy. You can't just say, well, I'm going to go in KDP Select and KU and see if wonderful things happen to me. It's probably not going to happen to you unless you've got, like I said, I did the perma-free and I've done, I bought some ads, and you got to have a little bit of a plan. I'm publishing pretty regularly over there. I've managed a new book about every 6 weeks, so that's not going to be possible for everyone, but you got to have some kind of plan, something that's going to help you get that visibility. It's probably not going to just be KDP Select alone isn't going to jump you up into the top 20 of your category.
Yeah, you've actually covered a little bit on my next question there, but I have gone on record quite a few times saying it's my own personal belief that authors shouldn't limit their prospective readers by deciding which devices can and can't get the books there. Are the benefits of the KU enrollment worth narrowing your book's release, do you think? And of course, and you mentioned a little bit about it, but have you encountered any negative feedback from your fans by doing so?
Yeah, I think it's just whatever author is comfortable with. My kind of take on it is, what's the bottom line? What's going to make you the most money every month? And of course, I personally am making enough that I don't want to alienate readers by not being available on the other sites with my main books. But since nobody knew the pen name existed, they weren't sitting there waiting for it. Nobody's going to be mad about it, really. And it's also possible that it's sort of like I was talking about at the beginning, doing the BookBub ad for the 99-cent 3 books. Normally I'd say that's crazy. You're giving away your books. But at the same time, if it ends up making you more money in a month or getting you more readers overall, it may be worth trying for a while. And I've definitely had people that haven't figured out how to make sales on the other sites anyway, and they do okay in KDP Select or Kindle Unlimited, so for them it makes sense. If you're already selling on the other sites, then it's something you have to ask yourself, do you want to try the next series in Kindle Unlimited or not? And right now, like I said, because the borrows count as sales, you are at something of a disadvantage if you're not in the program. I've definitely seen the sales rankings of my books, not my pen name books, just go down. Even though I may be selling the same amount of books, they've gone down and they're less visible because I'm not in the program. I'm not getting those easy borrows like some of the other people. And I've heard that from a lot of other authors too. There's people that are like, oh, it's the KU apocalypse, and the people saying that are the ones not in the program. And I'm not saying go in because of that reason. Just be aware. It's something to think about before totally dismissing it. Maybe you want to try with a new series. You never know. It's how much, like I said, I think we have to think of this as a business and not get too emotionally attached over what we believe. It's what's going to be the most effective, especially if you get to the point where this is your income and you're trying to live on this money. If it's just hobby money, then who cares? But I don't want to tell anybody what to do. It's each person's decision for sure.
My final question would be: I don't know if this pertains to you or not, but have you had a title enrolled in KU that you've since pulled out of KU? And if you have you noticed any increase in sales as a result, or have seen the sales plummet as a result? I'm just kind of curious.
I have not yet, so I'm going to have you hold your question for a few months. Like I said, I am going to plan to roll out a couple of probably the second and third books in the series once they've been in for 6 months, because you have the option every quarter to renew, it will automatically renew you if you don't uncheck it. So after the first quarter, I kind of debated, and I decided to leave the first book in. But so I'm planning to eventually move some out, and I would expect at that point, though, that those books would have dropped in the sales rankings anyway, because you can't unless you're really special like Joe, you can't you can't expect to stay in the top 20 or even maybe the top 100 of a category indefinitely. Most new releases might have their run and then they're going to gradually fall off. So once they've kind of fallen at Amazon, then I think that will be the time to try the other sites. And and I really don't know if the pending will have any luck whatsoever on the other sites, if the perma-free alone will be enough to help sell some books. I'll be curious to find out. I do know that with my regular stuff, it definitely took about a year and a half before I started kind of making headway at Apple and Kobo, Barnes & Noble. Barnes & Noble, I had a free short story in there early on that helped out. But in general, it took me having free stuff in the other stores before I really made any headway.
Yeah, makes sense. But that's the last of my questions.
All right. Well, I think we've probably blathered on for over an hour, so I'm hoping at least one of these segments was interesting to at least somebody. Maybe they fast-forwarded through me. They were only interested in Joe because they knew how special he is. So.
Oh, I'm special.
But I guess that's if nobody else has anything.
I think I'm good.
Nope.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, especially if you got all the way to the end of our scintillating episode, guys. And if you haven't given us a review on iTunes yet, we would definitely appreciate it. And if you come over to marketingsff.com, leave a comment. We kind of asked a couple of questions. I'd love to hear if you guys are in KU or if you're in Smashwords or doing Draft or Digital, or just come by and say hi. We'd love to hear from you.
Don't forget to subscribe.
Yes, please subscribe.
Please subscribe.
All right, thanks. Night, guys.
All right, take it easy.